Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Janina. So today I would like to talk about some books that were either really disappointing or they turned out to be one of the worst things I've ever read. And these are all books that I have read in 2019. With some of them I went into with quite high expectations, or let's say with a lot of hope that I would like them, but in the end I didn't. So that's a lot of disappointment I had in 2019 when it comes to these books. Let's just start and talk about some books that I was highly disappointed in or that I just truly basically just hated. So the first one I have here is Seek and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, which is book 2 in the Grisha trilogy. And I already talked about this book in my books that everyone liked, but I really didn't. And just to give you like an idea what this book is about, we have an Russian-inspired fantasy world where Alina is our main character, and the people who have magical abilities are called Grisha. And in the beginning of the first book, Alina is just your plain old girl, having no abilities at all, nobody likes her, and suddenly, because of an attack, her powers get triggered and she's suddenly like one of the mightiest Grishas to have ever existed, and everyone suddenly likes her, and it's just this really tropey fest of everything that a YA book normally has. And this second book was just full of that. Like the first book was like so, but this one took just everything like next level. I was just so freaking like fed up with everything that happened in this book because I was already annoyed by her in the first book, and I knew that in the second book it wouldn't get any better, and that was totally right because it just got worse. And I didn't like it. I felt everything was not moving forward. I didn't like any of the characters, even though we were introduced to Nikolai. And these 2 stars that I gave this book were like solely just for Nikolai because he is an amazingly well crafted character, but everything else just, I was not a fan of it at all. Did not like it. Moving on. The second one that I have read that I like, oh my god, I hated so much was Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Like, I wanted to read this because it's a classic, and I was like, okay, like young boys fighting to death on an island sounds kind of interesting, sounds very grotesque and weird, so that's probably something I will like because I like grotesque and weird stuff normally. But this, oh hell, freaking no. When I started this book, I was like, okay, maybe I will like it because it didn't start like that badly, I thought. But the more I read on, the more I hated everything about it because like these are all children, right? So they like talk really childish. Like every single one of them is so freaking stupid. And I know they're children. I know it, but children don't have to be stupid in books. Like absolutely not. But just how this was written and how stupidly they were written and the dialogues, and it had no like logic behind it. Like this whole book, I felt it had no purpose, like no goal where it was going. I didn't like the writing. I hated all the characters. I hated the plot. I hated this book. This was truly terrible. I think this was the worst book that I have read in 2019, like just in general. Lord of the Flies was not for me. The next one that I have here, I actually went into with a lot of hope, with a lot of expectations, because I heard it was supposed to be a little bit like Six of Crows, and I love Six of Crows. It's one of my favorite duologies of all time. This one was absolutely not like Six of Crows, and that is Gilded Wolves by Roshani Chokshi. So let's start with a summary if I can get this still right, because I think I forgot a lot about it because I skipped a lot in this book. I only remember that we follow like 5 or 6 young teens or young people who get a job to do like a heist. So it sounds like Six of Crows, right? It's kind of like the same idea. But how it was done was so convoluted, and I didn't understand the world building. Nothing was explained in a way that I felt made any sense. A lot of it went over my head, to be honest, and I have no problems reading like English books like at all. I understand normally 100% or at least 99% of the book, but how this was written just was so confusing and didn't make a lot of sense. I felt a lot of like logic was missing in it and a lot of info dumping happened, and I don't really like that. I like when a world is just explained while you're reading the book and not just here, have all these information in like 20 pages and now like good luck with the rest of the book. And this is a little bit how this book felt in my opinion. I didn't feel connected to the characters. I think there was like one character I truly liked because he was a little bit over the top, a little bit weird, a little bit sassy, and that's normally characters that I like. And I think he was also a little bit on the like villainous side, which is also something I really enjoy. I was so disappointed because I was hoping for something more like Six of Crows, but it really wasn't like that at all. I gave this 2 stars, I think, or like 1.5, which is still nice in my opinion. And yeah, really didn't like it. I will not continue with the series if there's ever a second book coming out in the future. So yeah, would not it wasn't for me at all. The next one will maybe surprise you a little bit and also maybe hurt a little bit, and that is Timon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda by Becky Abatelli. Yes, I know. So what you should know is that I normally don't read contemporary like at all. I cannot connect to it. I don't like it. It's just boring for me generally, and that's how this book felt for me as well. I thought it felt like a high school fan fiction, to be honest. And that's not something terrible. That's not something bad. It's just something that's boring for me personally. If I don't have the connection to the characters and to the overall plot that is actually happening. We follow Simon, who is a young gay boy who struggles with coming to terms with should he come out or should he not come out. Also, he's like being blackmailed by another guy who found out that he is gay because he read like his emails or something. We have a lot of interesting topics in this, and a lot of discussions are opened about like how a coming out shouldn't be and what it can mean to people. In general, I like that it touched upon a lot of topics that are really important in my opinion. But just in general, it just was just a normal generic book. It wasn't something that left me speechless at the end with how it was written, with how it was executed, and just the romance as well was not something that was heart melting for me personally. This was alright, but it wasn't something that will stick for me forever, and I gave this 3 out of 5 stars, which is still alright, but it's still a disappointing book for me, to be honest, because I was hoping for something more. I was expecting maybe something more, but I guess it was alright, but not something that will stay with me forever until I die. The next book I have here that left me a little bit disappointed was Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. I bought this book because Whitney over at Witty Novels really raves about this, and she loved this, and it's one of her favorite books of 2019, and that's wonderful. Like, if anyone loves this as much as she did, that's great. I'm really happy for you that you like this as much. I didn't. So we have a young girl who works in a kind of magical library with magical books. They're a little bit like sentient beings, but they're also kind of not. We follow the girl who grows up in one of these magical libraries, and because of something that happened in the libraries that she is working in, she gets thrown into like this sudden quest of magic, and everything she ever thought about magic turned out to be wrong, and she learns that magic is not what she thought it would be. And I thought it was a really interesting premise because I like books about books. I think it's just a cute, cool idea, especially if there is like magic involved in it. But in general, I just felt this was very generic. It was just very meh, in my opinion. It was just something that you read and you put down and you're like, well, that was okay, but that wasn't really great. You know, that's how this book just felt to me. There was one character in this, there's like a demon in this, that was delightful. He was a really good and nicely spun character that felt very three-dimensional and very interesting. But the other things just felt kind of like I was just like shrugging and very indifferent about a lot of things that happened in this. I didn't care for the villain very much. I didn't like how everything was resolved at the end. Just how everything was like done at the end felt a little bit rushed and not very like important in my opinion. I was disappointed in this because I was hoping for something more. I was hoping for being more impressed by it than I was in the end, which is fine. Like I still gave this 3 out of 5 stars, which is like a generic normal rating for books. Yeah, that was kind of sad, I guess, because I was hoping for something more. Which is always a bad idea, I think. If you go into something with a lot of hopes and expectations, you're like, it's obvious you're going to be disappointed, like most of the time, I guess. So, yeah, this was fine, but not something great. With the next book as well, I went into with a lot of high expectations, which is my own fault because I have the expectations on this book, and if they didn't turn out right, it's my own fault. I know, and that is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This was like an instant buy because I like Six of Crows, like I said, and I like King of Scars. I didn't like the Grisha trilogy, as you may already have guessed, maybe, but I still like Leigh Bardugo's writing style a lot, and I thought it would be really interesting because this is her first adult like crime, supernatural, weird kind of novel. So I thought I would like it, but I sadly didn't. So we follow Alex, who's our main character, and she goes to the University of Yale, who kind of recruited her because she can see ghosts and has like this weird power where she has like this connection to like the supernatural and magical stuff. And the Yale University has this weird underground society that deals with a lot of black magic and weird magical rituals and everything. And I thought that sounded really interesting, especially since there's a murder happening at the beginning of this book, and Alex is trying to solve that as well. So we have a lot of genres in this book, like a murder, like so we have a murder mystery trying to get solved, and we have dark magic, and we have ghosts. It sounded really interesting because just there's a lot in this, but I thought how it was done was just really weird. I didn't understand all of it. I felt a lot of it was underexplained, and sometimes it was just a little bit too much put into just one book. Sometimes you can go wrong with putting too much genres in just one book because it can turn out to be this mixed bag and nothing is done really right, you know. So I liked one character in this because he was interesting. Alex was also interesting, but I didn't care for her as a character very much. Like, I didn't feel connected to her, let's just say that. And that's normally like a problem. If I can feel connected to the main character, then I'm a little bit like indifferent about the book in general. I still will probably read the second book because it sounds kind of interesting. Because the ending of this book leaves me a little bit like, okay, I kind of want to know what happens next. So we'll see if I will actually read it. I don't know. But yeah, I was really disappointed and I was really sad about the fact that I did not like this as much as I hoped I would. And the last book that I've read where I was really disappointed in and felt it was one of the worst books that I've read in 2019 is Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moning. And this is actually something that I wanted to read for a while in 2019 because I kind of got into like these paranormal romance series in 2019 and wanted to read something like dark and with fairies and stuff and like, you know, this is an adult paranormal romance book, I think. I don't even know which kind of genre it is, to be honest. But anyway, so we follow a woman who travels to Dublin because her sister was killed in Dublin, and now she kind of wants to find out what happens to her sister in Dublin, and she uncovers that she can see fairy, and she comes into contact with them in Dublin because we all know like Ireland and its fairy folklore and everything, it kind of stems from there, right? We follow her how she travels there and tries to solve her sister's murder. So I felt nothing was actually happening in this book except for our main character being just generally really annoying. She was so sexualized in this book, and there's like, so So like in this book, there's like a fairy guy who, whenever he meets her, she is like ripping her clothes off because he is making girls addicted to like sex and everything. And that was like, I felt so disgusted while reading this because she was like in like an open space in a, like a museum or something, and she encounters him, and she just starts ripping off her clothes and wanting to have sex with the guy because he's like manipulating her because of his fairy aura. And that was, oh, I hated that so much. It felt so gross and weird and wrong to read that. It took everything from the book, like every interesting aspect that it had, which there weren't a lot of. Like these scenes took everything from it, to be honest, and I didn't like the writing at all. Like the main girl has like an weird like mentor apprentice kind of relationship with one of the guys. It's such a weird relationship. It's not healthy. It's so weird. Like they're not romantically involved, but just how they are involved is so freaking weird. It felt so wrong, and I have no interest at all to keep going with this series. And I was hoping for like something cool and like fairy driven and like being in this dark fairy world thingy, but it totally was not like that, which was, this book just left me really uncomfortable, to be honest. So I will not continue reading with this series like ever. So yeah, these are some of the books that I've read in 2019 that I was really disappointed by, or I thought they were just terrible in general, or I hated them. Anyhow, I hope you liked this video. Let me know if you read some of these books and if you liked them or if you hated them, just like me. I hope you're all having great holidays right now. I'm wearing my super cool Star Wars holiday sweater. It says like, this is my jolly face here. It says that, and I thought I should wear it because of the holidays, you know, and because Star Wars just came out and I'm having a lot of Star Wars feelings right now, to be honest, because I already watched it, but that's for another time. So that's enough talking for now. I hope you're all having a great holiday, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!